That was beautiful. Thank you very much. One of the things we find out rather rapidly in our lives is that all of us are reached by different things, but they call music the universal language for a reason. That music transcends and pierces language, culture, and I find especially praises are just incredible, the way they bridge the gap, they bring us together. And we're especially blessed. And you know, the other thing I've noticed, going to Baker, they like to sing the old hymns. And so it's reminding me of, we sing hymns here a little, but I'm being reminded of all the old hymns that I know. And that's another thing that creates this tremendous rapport in believers, are the old stalwart songs. Who can hear "It Is Well With My Soul" and not be connected not only to the audience, but these generations going back and back. It's tremendously, it's uplifting, and it reminds us too of all the good things we have in life, all the blessings we have. I want to share something here for just a couple of minutes before we break for classes. A couple of weeks ago, Ron and Joy and I went to some meetings in Tampa. And I always want to say Orlando because every time I go to Florida, it's to Orlando, not to Tampa. And I have to sit and think Tampa's on the west side of that peninsula that sticks down. But we talked, the meetings were called B'nai Yosef, the sons of Joseph. And we were talking about the great prophesied event in Scripture of the sons of Joseph, or Ephraim, coming together with the sons of Judah. And they're all through the Bible, this is the big picture. In fact, as we've mentioned before, for some reason, when Christians write books on prophecy, they leave out the most important thing, that God will restore His people, He'll return them to the land, and there'll be one people serving one God. We tend to quote the one that He'll put His Spirit within us, but we don't finish the idea. And as we were talking about this down there, and we went over a lot of things, it was, I have power. It was good to see people I hadn't seen for a while, and then to meet a lot of people I didn't know. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, as we have wrestled with this concept, is how does Ephraim, the church, those who have been called out, how do they become one with Judah? We have a 2,000-year history that's not very good. And one of the things we find is what we tend to tell Jews is that if you'll become a believer and be like me, then I'll love you. What we actually say is, I love you, but you're going to hell. So become like me, and then you're okay. When I say believer, everyone here knows what I mean.
I know, but it's a terrible term because it implies that they don't believe in anything. They believe in God just fine. And I hate that term. I don't care if everybody...
I hate to say this, Cecilia, you probably better get over it.
Well,
I mean,
a long time ago.
you think about it, you've got to come up with a term to distinguish those who believe in Yeshua and those who don't. So pick your term.
Christians and Jews and drop the believer crowd.
Okay, you can say Christians and Jews. Yeah, there's a reason we don't do that either. Because now you've left out a whole other group of people. But, I mean, this brings up exactly what I want to portray. We can't come together because we're tripping over words. We can't come together because we come up to somebody and we say, "Hi, are you a Christian?" "Yes." "What denomination?" "Mormon." "Oh, I love you. You're going to hell." And what we don't understand is that the need for people to hear the good news is transcendent and important. But what we wrestled with in this B'nai Yosef is, how do we become one with a people whose whole identity is wrapped up in not believing? In fact, their history is replete with things like we forced conversions, and to make sure they'd converted, we'd make them eat pork. And if they gagged, then we'd kill them. See, that's part of our inheritance. Now, would you do that? No, you wouldn't. But what you have to understand, what I have to understand when I talk to somebody, where are they coming from? And see, I think the Lord has blessed us to live in Utah because we're slow learners, but we're gradually learning there is a way to express the good news without bringing condemnation. And there's also an understanding, just as Cecilia was just bringing out, that we probably do not have to judge people. That's God's job. And I think the little game of charades, and I was never very good at it, either guessing what they were doing or doing the acting. But you all know what charades are, don't you? You act out something and people are supposed to guess what you're acting. It's like one time we were doing hymns, and the people got up on stage and they had a biscuit and they hooked it to a string.
It was a roll, not a biscuit.
Oh, I don't care if it's a roll or a biscuit.
That was a roll.
See, here we are, the nitpickers. You fouled it up, by the way. There's always help available. It was. She hasn't figured it out yet. Okay, it was a roll. It was hooked to a string, and it went up through a loop. It's kind of like the eye on a. We'll just say it was a pulley. And the people all gathered around. They all gathered back, Then someone grabbed the string, and the roll shot up to the ceiling, and everybody came over to where the roll was. And we were supposed to guess what that song was. And you were not supposed to say roll. You messed it up. It's When the Roll is Called Up Yonder. But here's the thing. How many of you watched that? I'll never forget it because I was just mystified. Why are they pulling a biscuit up to the ceiling? And this is the dumbest thing I've ever... When I found out what it was, I laughed, and every 10 minutes or an hour after, it would come up and it'd bubble up again, and I'd laugh. But here's the point about all that. Sometimes the best way to impart your message is to say nothing. And what we have decided at B'nai Yosef is that our witness to the Jewish people will be to say nothing. We are going to be Yeshua. We are going to come along and be their brother, Ephraim. We're going to lift them up in their tribulations. We're going to support them. And one day they're going to look at us and they're going to say, that's my brother, Ephraim. And the Messiah has called him home. And it's going to be so hard to keep our mouth shut. But just our little things here, we hurt each other with our mouths. Don't we? I mean, I'm one of the worst. Anybody that knows me, I rarely keep my opinion to myself. If I have an opinion, it seems like it should be aired. And what's funny about that is usually I just assume that's how everybody is. But for some people, that's very daunting. And you have to be careful what you say. And I think it's St. Francis who said something, and I can't say it exactly the way he did. For one thing, it was not in English. But he basically said, preach everywhere you go, all the time, to everyone you meet. If necessary, use words. And I think this is really important because one of the things that happens to us is that we attach so much importance to the way we see it or to our terminology that we miss that the whole gospel is about loving people. By this will all men know that you're my followers, that you're my disciples, that you have perfect doctrine. Did I say it right? That you use the right terminology, that you're a Baptist, a Catholic, No, see, everybody knows. Everybody knows that scripture. Here's what's incumbent upon us, is to see if we can live that, not tell people and they go, you know what? Watching how Robin behaves, she's obviously a follower of Yeshua. She's a follower of Jesus. And it isn't that we shouldn't speak. I mean, it's even like we've said in our articles, when you're asked a question, you have a responsibility to speak to the hope that's in you. What we think it's time to stop doing is to put pressure on people to be like us so we can like them. I mean, I always think about this because I'm sure I've done it too. But I remember Youth with a Mission, which a ministry I dearly love and support. But they came out here and were talking to some of our kids, and I had a chance. I don't know if they stayed at our home or they just came to visit us. But wonderful men of God. But we were talking about the relationship with Mormons. And they thought it was essential that they tell Mormons that they were serving the wrong Jesus and they were going to hell. And then they would tell me how they loved Mormons. And they were sincere. These are wonderful. If you think I don't think these are wonderful people, these people are class people. But what I didn't know how to express to them that when I come up to you and say that you have the wrong Jesus and you're going to hell, I've just built a wall so that you won't let me in. And we had a whole message. I hope when the messages come out from this conference that you can listen to Barry, I forget his name, Phillips. He gave a message on boundaries. And it was just awe-inspiring because he pointed out that we never enter somebody's boundary unless they ask us to. And you know what the Torah says? What does the Torah say about those who move boundary stones? It says they're cursed. If I take what belongs to Ryan and move it my way or move it away, I bring myself under judgment because that's something sacred that belongs to him. And that when I develop a relationship with Ryan to the place that he trusts me and he says, I would like to know why he's invited me in, I can speak to him. These are things that you could be thinking about because we're in this day where God really wants his people to come together, to unify. And there are so many ways. See, you know the effective evangelism that's happening in the world today is the evangelism that doesn't require people to believe anything, but that says, do you want to be healed? Yes, I'll be healed. Or you're having a terrible problem in life. Can I come alongside? Can I help you bear your burden? Can I pray with you? Is there something I can... Do you understand that when people see Yeshua watching how I live, he's so beautiful, and he's so wonderful, and he's so healing. But, see, it's hard for me to understand. But for a Jew, you say the words Jesus and the cross, it's anger and pain and hurt. Do I think that's legitimate? No, but it is their experience. So out of love for them, that's not how I come. But do I think, would I pray for somebody to be healed? Would I pray for somebody to be blessed? These are all things you should be thinking about. I seem to be thundering today. But it's really bothering people that we put in our articles to always be ready to give an answer, but we will not support or defend evangelizing Judah. It's driving them crazy. A young man wrote a letter to the elders and said that we were not men of prayer, that we were entering into bullheaded foolishness. And you know, you can tell he's full of righteous zeal, and he loves the Lord, but he doesn't understand that we're not in any way minimizing what Yeshua has done for us. We're saying that with Judah, we've lost the right to speak because of 2,000 years of hurt, and so we're going to live the gospel and ask God to make it evident. And it's something to think about, because when you look at the United States today, how many of you think we need less of the gospel? No, we're a culture in crying out to God, but I don't know if words will be enough. I think words, Shakespeare's almost as good as quoting the Bible. He says, suit your words to action. And I think that's where God has us today. So at least something to think about, and I'm sure all of you do that, but there was a song sung years ago by a Christian group, and I forget these things, but the gist of the song I've never forgotten. And it says, if you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? I didn't like that song. Can we have the youth up here? Should we do our scripture? Careful, sweetheart. Watching her come up like that reminds me of the story of the Ark of the Covenant when the Philistines sent it back to Israel. And they said, we're going to find out if this really is of God. We're going to put cows to pull this cart that have new calves and that have never worn a harness. So they put the ark on the new cart, put the harnesses on these cows, and the cows went to Israel, but it says they were lowing as they went. And I laugh because have you ever done something you really, you know you need to do it, but you're resisting every move, every step? Get out of that. You get a blow for us, Pete? Good job. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. This day I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. Repeat the verse, please. Repeat these. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. This day I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. You may be dismissed for your classes.